Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. Today we're on the website of Bromptons Auctioneers based in the UK, and we're going to have a look at their latest auction, which is their summer sale. And now if we have a look to the sale itself, we'll see that it started on the 18th of July and is due to finish on the 25th of July. It is the 21st today, so there's still a bit of time to have a look at this auction. Looks like there are quite a few lots, 260, quite a good number, mainly kind of bowed strings, but there are a few interesting guitars and a few other instruments in this auction, but it is primarily violins, violas, cellos and bows related to them. As I always say, check out the terms and conditions of the auction houses before you bid. This is a UK based auction, so if you're not in the UK, you're probably going to pay some kind of charges, shipping, import, export, etc. There might be some CITES things to deal with, and even if you're in the UK, there might be some shipment payments needed, etc., etc. So you can read up about all of that here. Buyer's premium for Bromptons is 20%, but as I always say, like Terezio, they have this kind of first in last out kind of policy, or whatever they call it, where if you're the first to bid and then you end up winning at the end, you get 2% off the buyer's premium, which doesn't sound like much, but if you're paying a fair amount of money for an instrument, then that 2% could be enough for a nice meal somewhere or something like that. So every little helps, as they say. Yeah, and without further ado, I think let's just crack on and see what we've got, seeing as though there's quite a few things here. Starting off in some bows, you can see here it says the kind of buyer's premium will go down there. So first of all, we have a good silver mounted violin bow by James Tubbs. Estimate is 2,000 to 4,000 there. You can see that you get the bit of a condition report here, so good throughout except for a small crack to thumb projection, minor wear to handle and split collar on button. You also have a couple of extra photos here, but it's quite handy to have these two. It means we can get through the lots a bit quicker. It's faintly stamped W.E. Hill, so interesting enough. If there's anything super interesting, we'll spend a bit more time on it, otherwise we'll just kind of crack through because we've got 260 things to look at. Got a French nickel mounted violin bow by Jean-Joseph Martin, circa 1817. The estimate's 2,000 to 3,000. Got a certificate of Salchow and Sons. You got the white there as well, and you can also see here you've got the certificates, so some good documents there. German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner, 1,500 to 2,000 there is the estimate. You can see here some bids at 1,600 on that so far. A French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin, 3,000 to 5,000 there is the estimate. Pierre Guillaume certificate as well, always handy, always good to see if you're buying a French bow, the Raffin certificate or Pierre Guillaume certificate. French silver mounted violin bow by Jacques Ordonneau, 2,500 to 3,500 is the estimate. Pierre Guillaume certificate on that one as well. French nickel mounted violin bow workshop of Marc Lebert, 1,200 to 1,500, Pierre Guillaume certificate as well. French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Louis Bazin, certificate of West Country Violins, Devon, 2022. Interesting. So, see lots of people issue certificates. Be interesting to know how respected a West Country Violins certificate is for a French bow, but anyway, that's a topic for another video maybe. Very good condition, 800 to 1,200 the estimate. French nickel mounted violin bow by Louis Morizon Frère, 500 to 800. French silver mounted violin bow by Jean-Dominique Adam, 4,000 to 6,000 there. Raffin certificate, there you go, that's what you want to see. French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Bazin, 2,500 to 3,500. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hill and Sons, 2,000 to 3,000 there is the estimate, 2,000 the current bid. French silver mounted violin bow by Alfred Lamy, 5,000 to 6,000 the estimate. An English gold and tortoise shell mounted violin bow by William Charles Retford for W.E. Hills and Sons, This is a very interesting looking bow. 3 to 5,000 there, the estimate. 3.2 already, a few bids on that. 60 grams, stick very good, frog with considerable damage, button with wear to pearl facet. I think these tortoiseshell frogs are very prone to cracking and things like that, unfortunately. So you can see the damage, the wear to the pearl. That's very common as well on these bows. Someone on YouTube has a restoration video where they show kind of restoring one of these kind of buttons, and it's quite a lot of work for a button, but interesting looking bow anyway. As I always say though, anything with kind of ivory, tortoiseshell, it's just getting difficult with CITES and travel, and now they're talking about potentially kind of restricting Pernambuco in the future, or they're trying to lobby for it in Brazil, so that's going to cause all sorts of fun, so bear that in mind. French nickel mounted violin bow by Charles Nicholas Bazar, 2 to 3,000 there, Raffin certificate. German nickel mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner, 1,500 to 2,000. French nickel mounted violin bow by Francois Lot, 1,000 to 1,500, Raffin certificate. Silver mounted violin bow, probably German. French nickel mounted violin bow, School of Francois Pacat, 4 to 6,000. French silver mounted violin bow, probably by Claude Thomasin, 3 to 5,000. French nickel mounted violin bow by Moison Frère, it's got a Raffin certificate, 1,500 to 1,800. An English silver mounted violin bow by George Darby, 1,200 to 1,800 there, 1,000 the starting bid. French nickel mounted violin bow by Louis Moison Frère, 800 to 1,200, another West Country certificate there. French silver mounted violin bow, probably by Jean Joseph Martin, 5 to 600 is the estimate. A gold and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow, possibly French, 5 to 800, no bids on that so far. Round stick, interesting. The head is pinned, so that's going to obviously affect the value substantially. CITES regulations, as they say here, so got to be careful because it could be quite costly if you don't have the right license for exporting those. French nickel mounted violin bow by Georges Bargenet, 3 to 5,000 there, Pierre Guillaume certificate. French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Louis Bazar, 2 to 3,000, another Raffin certificate there. German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner, 1,500 to 2,000. French nickel mounted violin bow, possibly Workshop of Malines, 4 to 6,000. A French silver mounted violin bow by Charles Bazar, 2.5 to 3.5. A French nickel mounted violin bow by Jean Joseph Martin, 2 to 3,000 with a Guillaume certificate. German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner, 1,200 to 1,800. It's got a Raffin certificate on that. Interesting looking frog there. It looks quite low profile. Nickel mounted violin bow, possibly French, 1,000 to 1,500 there. Silver mounted violin bow, probably from the Finkel workshop, 4 to 600. French silver mounted violin bow by Emile Auguste and Emile Francois Houchard, 5 to 8,000 there, Raffin certificate. French silver mounted violin bow by Eugene Cugno-Houry, 2.5 to 3.5 there. French silver mounted violin bow by Jean Joseph Martin after Viome, 7 to 10,000 there. Certificate of Stephanie Janssen, Paris, 2018. So interesting certificate there. Very good condition, except one crack to thumb projection. No bids on that so far. English silver mounted violin bow, probably by James Tubbs, 2.5 to 3,500. It's quite an interesting looking bow. Okay. Good and interesting German silver mounted violin bow after Tort, 1,000 to 1,500 there. No bids on that so far. Ooh, we're on to instruments now. A fine German violin by Joseph Klotz Mittenvald, 1794. Looks quite nice. 8 to 10,000 is the estimate there. 352 length of back. Repairs to table ribs, back and peg box, worm damage to peg box. No bids on that so far, but they are usually fairly popular. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, 4,000 to 6,000 the estimate, 3.5 starting bid. Length of back 358. It's had some work done to it as well. Scroll is quite interesting, otherwise not super taken by that one. An interesting violin, probably Tyrol, circa 1760, 2,000 to 3,000 the estimate. It's got 1,800 is the bid. Yeah, looks like it's had some work there at the button. You can see repair potentially. Interesting. A violin, my favourite, 6 to 1,000 is 600 to 1,000 is the estimate. 2 bids so far on this. Not much talk about it. Doesn't look that old, to be fair. Length of back 357. An Italian violin, possibly by Gaetano Pilastri, Bologna, 1937, 12 to 15,000 is the estimate. Starting bid of 10. No bids so far. It's got a certificate as well from Rodolfo Marchini in Rome. An Italian violin by Stefano Cogna, Cremona 2022, 5 to 8 is the estimate. Got 3 bids on that already, and has a certificate from the maker there. A French violin, probably by Charles Galliard, Paris 1861, 2 to 3,000. Got 2 bids on that. Spanish violin by Ramon Paramon, Barcelona 1948, 2 to 3,000 there. 355 length of back. I think I say this every time, but you don't see too many Spanish instruments at the auctions, so good to see something a little bit different. A composite violin, first half of the 19th century, 8 to 1200s, the estimate. Length of the back 359, starting bids of 700, but nothing so far. The back is a bit uninspiring looking, to be honest. An interesting violin attributed to Alessandro Diespine, first half of the 19th century, 7 to 10 there, but no bids. A German violin by Louis Nob, Bad Homburg 1888, 2 to 3,000 the estimate there. It's quite long, 362. A French violin, probably Mirko, second half of the 19th century, 2 to 3,000. Got 2 bids on that. 357, that's the length of the back. French violin, possibly by Jean Denisot, Paris, circa 1840. 1,800 to 2,200 there, no bids on that. 362, it's quite long as well. Oh, I think we might have, did we skip one there? No, one's just missing. Okay. An Italian violin by Riccardo Bergonzi, Cremona 2016, 3 bids on that, 5 to 8,000. We often see instruments by this maker. French violin by René Bailly, Mirko 1925, 2 to 3,000 there's the estimate. And an Italian violin by Dario Aguzzi, Vidigolfo 2015, 3 bids on that, 2 to 4,000. I quite like this violin actually. I like the overall kind of appearance and the model shape and the work. Yeah, for a modern Italian, I think it's quite nice. I do quite like it. So that's good. 355 length of back, it's all respectable. An Italian violin, School of Galliano, Naples, second half of the 18th century, 6 to 8,000. Starting bids at 5,000. Scroll damaged by fire. Yeah, you'll see that when we look at the pictures. Very interesting. Length of back 351. Repairs to table, ribs, neck, back and scroll. Dendro from Serge Boyer, 1698 and 1722, with wood correlating with examples of Guadagnini, Galliano, members of the Galliano family, etc., etc. Although you need to be careful with all these results, because they will throw up the most kind of tested results. So you can see that the scroll is probably not that salvageable. I think the majority of the body is okay, but the scroll itself is in a real state. Some damage to the back here. Had quite a nice neck on that, actually, quite a nice figure. So this is obviously the varnish here is all ruined. This edge work might have to be redone, maybe some bits here as well, but this neck and scroll is literally toasted. Maybe you can salvage some of this scroll, but don't know, this might be a difficult one. So anyway, be interesting to see if someone bids on that or not. It's still quite a lot of money for a charred violin. So, an Italian violin by Massimo Negroni, Cremona 2021. 3 bids on that, 5 to 8,000 again. French violin by Charles Jean-Baptiste Colin Mazar, Paris 1910, 4 to 5,000. Number of bids 2. These are always popular. I think people buy these for kind of new aspiring musicians because they're kind of a safe bet, really. An interesting violin, circa 1790, 2 to 4 is the estimate, 1800 starting bid. Nothing else so far. And that's interesting that it has a crown, but it's not an ebony crown. That's curious. Interesting violin, northern Italy, second half of the 19th century. 8 to 12,000, the estimate there. Starting bid 7,000. Repairs to table, some post crack in table with patch. Yep, fairly interesting. Half-size Italian violin made by Giuseppe Scarbi, Modena, 1863. 4 to 5 is the estimate there. Very interesting looking violin. Quite an incredible back, actually. Very nice. Very interesting long kind of sweeping peg box as well. And a German violin, possibly by a member of the Klotz family, Mittenvald, circa 1780. 3 to 5 is the estimate. No bids on it so far. French violin, Miracle, 1830s. 2 to 4 is the estimate. No bids so far. A nice back on that. Looks like it's had some repairs. Italian violin by Diego Pitanella, Venice, 1945. 10 to 15,000 is the estimate there. An Italian violin by Alfredo Gianotti, Milan, 1978. 5 to 8,000 there is the estimate. An English violin by William Luff, London, 1984. 4 to 6,000 there is the estimate. 4,000 the current bid. And then moving on to a violin circa 1850. 2 to 4,000 is the estimate there. Violin attributed to Ernst Heinrich Roth, Marknekerken, 1923. 1,500 to 2,000 the estimate. One bid there. French violin by Paul Bailey, Paris, 1904. 8 to 12,000 the estimate there. No bids so far. A violin, probably Italian, first half of the 19th century. 6 to 8,000 there. Length of back 357. This I'm not entirely sure what is particularly Italian about this, but if anyone has an idea, let me know. I can't see anything myself, but nevertheless. An English violin by George Craske, Manchester, circa 1850. Always interested to see Craske instruments in auction. Very curious maker for sure. Always interesting. And this has a certificate of purchase from Michael Shakespeare in London in 2017. Interesting. Violin with its original scroll, and it seems to have the label. It's got the Hill registration as well. Quite long actually, 361 length of back. But anyway, 5 to 8 is the estimate. No bids so far. Fine violin, South Germany, first half of the 18th century. 4 to 6,000 there is the estimate. Quite a nice colour of varnish. Shame about that big brick repair there at the back. An Italian violin by Luigi Occoli, Pistoia, 2020, 4 to 6,000. With a certificate of the maker. Good old Luigi, who likes to, or someone on his behalf likes to submit a lot of these instruments at auction. I'm assuming it is the maker himself, but that could be wrong. But anyway, I've seen a few of these in person now. They're actually, yeah, really nice. I'm not sure how they play as such, as I'm not really a player, but yeah, they're quite nice looking in person for sure. That I can confirm. An interesting violin, probably Tyrol, circa 1760. 3 to 5 is the estimate. Got one bid of 2,600 so far. It's fairly interesting looking. French violin by Dieter and Lorange, Marseille, 1930. Estimate is 2 to 3,000 there. No bids on that so far. French violin by René Bernardel, 1936, 1800 to 2,200 there. Certificate of the maker as well. Current bid 1,800. That's interesting to have that original certificate. An Italian violin by Alfredo Gianotti, Milan, 1981, 5 to 8,000 there is the estimate. One bid of 5,000. A French violin by Paul Bailey, Paris, 1880, 7 to 10,000, 6.5 the current bid. An Italian violin by Stefano Cornia, Cremona, 1999, 11 bids on that, up to 5,002. I'm not even sure how you get 5,002. I thought you had to do kind of normal increments, but anyway, nevertheless, interesting. 4 to 6 is the estimate, so it's kind of right on the money at the moment. French violin by Paul Maginot, Mirecourt, 1894, 1,500 to 2,000. Got current bid is 1,300. Quite nice wood on that one. French violin by Amédée Dodone, Mirecourt, 1932, 2 to 3,000 is the estimate. We've got 3 bids on that, 2,000. An Italian violin by Renato Saperti, Cremona, 2019. Estimates 3 to 5, starting bid 2.5. With the certificate of Stefano Cornia, that's interesting. F-hole crack in table, that's interesting. French violin by Amédée Dodone, Mirecourt, 1942, 2 to 4,000 there. No bids so far. French violin by Chardon of Few, Paris, 1934, 4 to 5,000 the estimate. Once again, no bids. An English violin by Richard Duke, London, circa 1760, 3 to 5,000 there's the estimate. It's got a letter of opinion from John Dilworth, so that's interesting. Well, I mean, that's a good opinion to have if you're looking at English violins, so that's a good sign. Good violin, circa 1890, 3 to 5,000 there. Length of back 354. Looks like it's got a bit of a slightly weird small button there. No bids so far. French violin by Charles Le Lyonnais Nantes, circa 1930. 2,500 to 3,500 there. A Bohemian violin by Matthias Heineken, Wildstein, 1927. 2.4 to 2.8 is the estimate. We're on 2.4 at the moment. Few bids, few people interested in that. An Italian violin by Eugenio Sidersi, Florence, 1961. 10 to 15,000 is the estimate. 9,000 is the opening bid, but nothing so far. An Italian violin, workshop of Giuseppe De Sato, Naples, 1887. 8 to 10,000 is the estimate. No bids on that. French violin by Leon Mougenot, Mirecourt, circa 1905. Estimates 2 to 4,000. Current bid is 2,000. An interesting violin, possibly Italian, circa 1900. 2 to 3,000 there is the estimate. No bids. Once again, I'm not really 100% seeing anything super interesting there. Violin, second half of the 19th century. 1,000 to 1,500 is the estimate. We've got bids of 1,100 so far. And back to bows. A French silver mounted viola bow by Emile Auguste Houchard, 7 to 10,000 there. An English silver mounted viola bow by Brian Tunnicliffe, estimates 1 to 1,500, no bids on that so far. French silver mounted viola bow by Charles Nicolas Bazar, 5 to 7,000. An English silver mounted viola bow by James Tubbs, 3 to 4,000 is the estimate. An English gold mounted viola bow by Garner Wilson, estimates 3 to 4,000 there, no bids on that so far. A French silver mounted viola bow, School of Fatigue, 1,500 to 2,000 is the estimate. German silver mounted viola bow, 1,500 to 2,000 the estimate. English silver mounted violin or viola bow, 1,000 to 1,200. The weight is kind of seems a little bit kind of heavy for a violin bow, but maybe a bit light for viola, so I guess it's somewhere in the middle, as they say. An English viola by Charles and Samuel Thompson, London, 1786, 4 to 6,000. There's the estimate. 387 length of back, so it's fairly small. Quite a nice looking viola there. An Italian viola attributed to and possibly by Natale Novelli, Milan, circa 1970. 8 to 10,000 there is the estimate. It's got a certificate from Giuseppe Lucci. Length about 422. A viola, 1,000 to 1,500 is the estimate. Labelled Giuseppe Saretta. No bids on that so far. Good viola, probably English, second half of the 19th century. 2 to 4 is the estimate. 7 bids at 2,800. This is quite an interesting looking viola. It's quite wide. Length back 392, so it's kind of quite small length but quite wide. Nice looking back. This is an interesting viola for sure. An English viola by John Betts, circa 1800. 8 to 12,000 here. It's another fairly small viola. Interesting back there, quite nice. See what the condition report says. A few cracks and things. So yep, that's an interesting one. Viola attributed to and probably by Remedio Muncha, Cremona, 1923. 6 to 8,000 there. No bids so far. An Italian viola by Raffaele Trapani, Naples, circa 1830. 10 to 15,000 there is the estimate. But no bids so far. Interesting scroll there. In general, a fairly interesting looking instrument there. Quite small as well for a viola, 378 length of back. French viola, probably Paris, circa 1780, 3 to 5,000 there is the estimate, length of back 392. It's a Dendro report from Peter Ratcliffe, 752762. Interesting. It's got some French links there in the Dendro. The viola was previously used by one of the members of the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra during the 1950s and can be seen with its previous owner in the attached image. 3 to 5,000. The estimate there, 2.6 is the opening bid. Interesting looking instrument, definitely. That's a good good photo there. An Italian viola by Gino Antonelli, Mantua 1984, 6 to 8,000 there, 402 is the length of back, so good middle ground. English viola by Charles John Wilkinson, London circa 1930, 5.5 to 6.5 is the estimate, 415, which I think is a good kind of modern kind of standard. An Italian viola by Carlo Vittori, Florence 1975, got 8 to 12 is the estimate there. It's got a certificate of the maker, length about 418. And an Italian viola by Vincenzo Postiglione, Naples 1870, 10 to 15,000 the estimate, current bids of 6. So length of back 374. Wow, that is very small for a viola. So some footnotes here about the instrument. So curious. Yeah, strange, very small kind of size of instrument. Indeed. English viola by John Wilkinson, London circa 1920, 8 to 12,000 the estimate on that, 419. French viola attributed to Leopold Renaudin, Paris circa 1780, 6 to 8,000 is the estimate there. An Austrian viola by Johann Georg Thier, Vienna 1767, 3 to 5 the estimate, 2.6 is the current bid, 392 is the length of back. Back to some more bows here. French silver mounted cello bow by Francois Nicolas Vora, 12 to 18,000 with its Raffin certificate. French silver mounted cello bow by Victor Fatigue, 6 to 10,000 euros there, one bid at 5,000. An English silver mounted cello bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 4 is the estimate. An English silver mounted cello bow by Arthur Barnes for W.E. Hills and Sons, 1,800 to 2.5 there is the estimate. French silver mounted cello bow by Eugene Cugno-Huri, 3 to 5,000. It's got a Raffin certificate as well. English silver mounted cello bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 3 to 5. Swiss silver mounted cello bow by the Finkel Workshop, 600 to 1,000 is the estimate. Fine French silver mounted cello bow by Francois Nicolas Vora, 12 to 15,000 there is the estimate. An English silver mounted cello bow by James Tubbs, 8 to 12,000. It's got a certificate from Salcho and Sons. An English silver mounted cello bow probably by James Dodd, 1,200 to 1,800. Silver mounted cello bow probably French, 600 to 1,000 there is the estimate. French silver mounted cello bow by Andre Vigneron-Fille, 12 to 18,000 is the estimate there. Some quite nice cello bows. An English silver mounted cello bow probably by William Tubbs, 3 to 5,000 the estimate. An English silver mounted cello bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 3 is the estimate. We've got current bids at 1,800. English silver mounted cello bow by John Clutterbuck, 1,200 to 1,800 there. Good silver mounted cello bow, 1,500 to 2,500. French silver mounted double bass bow by Charles Pacat, 12 to 18,000. Now we're on to cellos. An English cello, School of Forster, London, first half of the 19th century, 15 to 20,000 is the estimate. No bid so far. French cello, probably Mirecourt, second half of the 19th century. Estimates 7 to 10. Cello, possibly Dutch, circa 1800. One bid there. This is an interesting looking cello, this one. Like the F-hole placement. Interesting scroll as well. So 5 to 8,000 the estimate. A cello, circa 1864 to 6 is the estimate there. An English cello by John Morrison, London, 1815, 8 to 10,000 there is the estimate. Sold with the receipt of Martin Godleman, Middlesex, 1989. A French cello, probably by Laurent Bourlier, Mirecourt, circa 1840, estimate 7 to 10. A good German cello, circa 1900, 4 bids on that, 3,200. An English cello by J.E. Vickers, Norfolk, circa 1980, estimates is 2 to 1800, 2,000 to 300, starting bids at 1800. An Italian cello by Gabriele Natali, Pistoia, 2018, after Pacquiao Giacomo Ruggieri, estimates 15,000 to 20,000, starting bid at 12. That is quite a wide instrument now. It appears to look quite wide, but interesting nevertheless. Looks quite nice for a contemporary instrument. An interesting Italian cello, circa 1780, 15,000 to 20,000 is the estimate. No bids so far. Interesting strip down the middle. Obviously most bids come in at the last minute, so we won't see much bidding activity. An English cello by Thomas Kennedy, London, circa 1810, 20 to 30,000 there. Got a repairer's label, Hawks and Sons. Interesting. Wow, what a back. That's beautiful. That's a very, very nice looking back there. Looks like it might have a unfortunate crack there in the back. Yeah, soundpost crack in the back with patch. So, but still, the estimate's 20 to 30,000 with a soundpost crack in the back on a cello. So it shows you that the value of some of these decent English cellos is still there. German cello by Matthias Neuner, Mittenvald, 1843. Estimates is 8 to 12. Starting bids at 7. It's good to see a nice German cello. English cello, School of Hill, London, circa 1790, 3 to 5,000 there is the estimate. Starting bids at 2.6. Once again, another interesting looking cello. I quite like that actually. That's quite an interesting one. Repairs to table ribs, back, neck and pegbox worm damage, soundpost crack in back with patch. Okay, that explains the kind of slightly lower estimate there. You can see a bit of a crack there, but could be an interesting instrument. French double bass by Justin Amédée Derazy, Mirecourt, circa 1860, estimate 16 to 18,000 there. An English bentside spinet by Arnold Dolmetsch, Hazelmere, circa 1950, estimates 1200 to 1800, starting bids of 1,000. So there you go, you can see some other things for sale in this auction. And moving on to some guitars, a flamenco guitar by Jose Ramirez, Madrid, 1966, 5 to 6,000. There's the estimate. It's quite a nice instrument, quite plain at the back, but nice, well-respected maker. An American guitar by the Martin Company, Pennsylvania, 1926, model 21, 2 to 4,000 is the estimate. 6 bids, 2,600 is the current bid. So that I'm sure will sell quite well. I'm sure it will probably go quite a little bit higher than that. Now this is a definitely interesting one. An Italian guitar by Gennaro Fabbricatore, Naples, circa 1820, 8 to 10,000. So this is kind of one of the earliest kind of, I suppose, romantic guitar makers from that period. So this is, you know, this is one of the, in terms of romantic guitar makers, Fabbricatore is really one of the kind of pinnacle makers. So if you're interested in collecting kind of romantic guitars, then this would be a nice instrumental collection. And really fascinating how these kind of decorations are glued on top of the soundboard with these Fabbricatores. They're not kind of inlaid, this is actually glued on to the soundboard and sticks up a bit. Really interesting. But 8 to 10,000, that seems like a fair estimate. Starting bids at 7, there's no bids so far, but very interesting guitar for sure. An Italian guitar by Raffaele and Antonio Galliano, Naples, circa 1830, 4 to 6,000 is the estimate. Starting bids 3.5. So obviously a lot of makers also made guitars rather than just violins and things. Obviously Galliano violin, even kind of Raphael and Antonio violin, which is probably one of the lesser valued instruments in the Galliano family. That will still cost you quite a lot more than this guitar. So if you wanted a Galliano without the crazy price tag, then you could just get a guitar instead of a violin. So, but interesting looking, and the same kind of, you know, raised decoration, a bit like the Fabbricatore there. And a Spanish guitar by Jose Ruiz Pedregosa, Marmolejo, 1983, 1,000 to 1,500 there is the estimate. Starting bids at 800. Not a maker that I know the name of, I'll be honest. Interesting kind of inlay there on the back. This guitar is owned by the celebrated music filmmaker Christopher Nupin, who studied with Segovia in Siena and made 2 beautiful films with Segovia entitled Andres Segovia, the Song of the Guitar in Segovia at Los Olivos, which have been broadcast worldwide. Oh, interesting. So that's some curious provenance there to it. Back to some bows. A French nickel-mounted violin bow by Francois Pacquiao, 10 to 15,000 there is the estimate. Such & Sons certificate. French silver-mounted violin bow by Charles Alfred Bazin, 2 to 3,000 with a Guillaume certificate. An interesting violin bow, possibly French, circa 1800, 1,500 to 2,000 is the estimate. Current bid 1,200. This is a slightly interesting looking bow actually. An interesting frog there. Definitely quite curious. An English gold-mounted violin bow by Percy Bryant, 1,500 to 2,000 there. Not a maker that I've heard of before, I must confess, so it's good to see that. 3 bids of 1,500 on that so far. French silver-mounted violin bow, probably workshop of Jerome Thibouville Lamy, 1,000 to 1,200 the estimate, no bids so far. An English silver and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Sidney Yeoman for W.E. Hills and Sons, 5 to 7,000 there. No bids as yet. CITES restrictions there, obviously, with the tortoiseshell frog. German silver mounted violin bow by Otto Heuer, 1,500 to 2,000 there, 1,500 bids so far. German gold mounted violin bow by Johannes Paulus, 1,000 to 1,500 there is the estimate, no bids. French nickel mounted violin bow by Francois Lot, 1,000 to 1,500, no bids. German silver mounted violin bow by Albert Nürnberger, 6 to 800 the estimate. Nickel mounted violin bow after Joseph Arthur Vigneron, 6 to 800 the estimate. It's got a bit of a repaired head there. A French violin bow stick attributed to Eugene Sartori, 3 to 500 the estimate. We've got 2 bids already on that. French silver mounted violin bow by Alfred Lamy Père, 4 to 6,000 the estimate there. A French silver mounted violin bow, probably workshop of Charles Nicolas Bazin after Jean-Joseph Martin, 3 to 4.5 is the estimate there, no bids. Stick turning over badly behind head. Thick varnish behind the head on underside. Frog good with some minor wear. So seems like it has a few issues there. French nickel mounted violin bow, School of Pacquiao, 2 to 4,000 there. It's the estimate, no bids. French nickel mounted violin bow by Nicolas Simon, 3.5 to 4.5 the estimate. French silver mounted violin bow by Eugene Sartori, 3 to 5,000 there is the estimate. Starting bids 2.6. There must be some big issues there, I was going to say, because of the thing. Round stick later mounts, a stick bound near the head. It's been well used as well. Look at that, it's very worn. Stick with repaired brake behind head, handle with much wear, frog with much wear. Well, I mean, this is a good example of where you could potentially pick up like a fine bow with damage that might still play very well for, you know, quite a lot less than, you know, it would be normally. I mean, if it was in good condition and it had a good certificate, then it could be 10 or 15,000 could be the estimate, or more potentially. But yeah, very interesting. There's some bits which don't really look familiar in terms of Sartori to me, but I'm not an expert, so yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one. French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Morison Frere, 2.5 to 3.5 the estimate. An English silver mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 3 is the estimate there. German silver mounted violin bow by H.R. Frechner, 1,500 to 2,000 the estimate. 3 bids on that already. French nickel mounted violin bow, 5 to 800 there. Silver mounted violin bow by Vladimir Radosavljevic, 3.5 to 4,500 there. No bids so far. French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Morison, 2 to 3,000. Got a Guillaume certificate. French nickel mounted violin bow by Emile Francois Huchard, 2 to 3,000. Guillaume certificate. French nickel mounted violin bow School of Mer, 1,500 to 2,000. There's the estimate. Guillaume certificate again. French nickel mounted violin bow by Claude Thomasin, 800 to 1,200. There is the estimate. It's got head repair as well. Starting bids 700. French silver mounted violin bow by Francois Nicolas Vorin, 4 to 6,000 the estimate. French silver mounted violin bow by Louis Bazar, 3 to 5,000 there the estimate. An English silver mounted violin bow by Sidney Yeoman for W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 4,000 is the estimate. 1,800 starting bid, no bids so far. German nickel mounted violin bow by Ludwig Bausch, 6 to 1,000 is the estimate. Silver mounted violin bow, probably German, 6 to 800. French silver mounted violin bow by Pierre Malines, 4 to 6,000 there with a Guillaume certificate. Silver mounted violin bow attributed to Eugene Sartori, 2 to 3,000 pounds is the estimate. 1,800. There's 1 bids on it so far. 3/4 size French nickel mounted violin bow School of Mer, 1,000 to 1,500 there. No bids. English silver and tortoiseshell mounted violin bow by Sidney Yeoman for W.E. Hills and Sons. Estimates 1,800 to 1,200. 2 bids at 750. CITES restrictions on that, of course. English silver and aluminium mounted violin bow by W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 3,000 there is the estimate. English silver mounted violin bow by George Darby, 1,500 to 2,000. French silver mounted violin bow after taught, 8 to 12,000 there is the estimate. Starting bid 7,000. A French silver mounted violin bow attributed to Claude Joseph Fonclause, 4 to 6,000 there is the estimate. German gold mounted violin bow by a member of the Frechner family there, 2 to 4,000. Interesting looking bow there. No bids so far. Back onto instruments. An Italian violin by Celeste Ferrotti, Milan, circa 1900. 15 to 20,000 the estimate. We have 4 bids up to 13,000 at the moment. An Italian violin, possibly by Paolo Antonio Testore, Milan, circa 1740. Estimates 8 to 10,000 there. It's got the label Carlo Antonio Testore there. Length of back 354. No bids so far. An interesting looking violin, but I think it's in a bit of a unfortunate state there. Interesting kind of flat on the back of the scroll there. It's obviously got quite a lot of damage. A big soundpost crack on the back. Interesting scroll there. You can see that it's got a massive patch on the front, massive patch on the back. So, but still, I mean, it may be a potential opportunity if you are kind of not worried about those repairs to own. You know, if it sounds good and if those repairs are holding, it could be a cheap way to get a nice violin if you can deal with the fact that you might have to do these repairs again in the future. But nevertheless, interesting looking violin. An Italian violin, probably by Rodolfo Fredi, Rome, 1926. 6 to 8,000 is the estimate there. No bids so far. French violin by Charles J.B. Colin Mazar, Miracle, 1897. 3 to 5,000 is the estimate. 3 bids on that, 3,200. French violin by Francois Breton, Miracle, circa 1825. Estimate is 2 to 4,000. No bids so far. An English violin, possibly by a member of the Ferber family, London, circa 1820. We've got 1,500 to 2,000 there is the estimate. Interesting looking violin there. No bids so far. French violin, Miracle, circa 1890. 6 to 800 is the estimate. No bids. An interesting Italian violin, second half of the 18th century. Estimate 7 to 10,000 there. Starting bid of 6,000 with an Armati label. That's interesting. It's got a certificate from Carlson and Newman in Cremona 2004. Let's have a kind of quick look over and see what that says. It's got some repairs. Later Italian table and scroll. Okay, well, it's all in Italian, so I'm not going to be able to read that, but curious anyway. An Italian violin by Carlo Bruno, Turin, circa 1940. 5 to 6,000 there, the estimate. We've got 3 bids there of 5,000 at the moment. .353 length of back. French violin, workshop of Paul Blanchard, Lyon, 1883. 4 to 6, no bids. An Italian violin, second half of the 18th century there. 4 to 6,000 is the estimate. Quite cool scroll there. See, it looks like it's had a lot of repairs. Length of back 355. You know when they say C diagram, then it's going to be a bit serious. Okay, yeah, so front on the back, lots of cracks. It doesn't look like there's a patch on the back either, so yeah, it's an interesting one. French violin by Emile Menesson, probably Reims, 1898. 3 to 5,000 is the estimate. 2,600 is the starting. An Italian violin by Luigi Agostinelli, Milan, 1962. Estimates 2 to 4,000. Starting bid 1,800, but no bids there. I like that scroll. I'm really quite a big fan of these Italian, what I call the croissant scrolls that kind of fan out quite wide. So that's like a really good example of a scroll type that I like. Looks interesting enough. Seems to be a picture of the top off. I'm a bit confused by what that is. Oh, the later table sold with the original table. Ah, okay. I was getting a bit confused there. I was thinking what's going on. So obviously someone had a bit of an accident with the table and they had it changed. So there you go, you get a spare table. Length of back 356. I think it's kind of an interesting violin there. I do like that scroll. An Italian violin by Giuseppe Castagnino, Chiavari, 1954. 15,000 to 20,000 is the estimate there. Starting bids of 15,000. Violin retains its original pegs and bridge. Interesting. Interesting scoops there to the F-hole wings. C diagram. It's a bit of a crack there, but not much going on. An Italian violin by Mario Garda, Mantua, 1986. 8 to 10,000. The 12,000. Sorry, the estimate. 7,000 the starting, but no bids so far. The XLC Playfair, a French violin by Cresson Francais, Paris, 1902. 6 to 8,000 the estimate, 5,000 starting bid. Lots of documents here. Oh, interesting. This violin was awarded to LC Playfair. Okay. Winning the gold medal of the Paris Conservatoire for violin. So there we go. That explains the writing on the side. French violin by Francois Neufchâteau, circa 1860. And the estimates are 3 to 4,000. Starting bids 2,600. That seems fairly reasonable actually for one of these. An Italian violin, second half of the 19th century, 3 to 5 is the estimate. Okay. An interesting violin, possibly Italian. 2 to 4,000 the estimate. An English violin, circa 1820. Goulding & Co. Beneath the button. Yep, nice looking violin there. German violin by Leonard Musiel, Nuremberg, circa 1730. 7 to 10,000 there is the estimate. Nice scroll. Uh, 6,000 starting, but nothing, no bids so far. An Italian violin by Emilio Bassi, Cremona, 1990. 6 to 10,000 there the estimate. Starting bids of 5,000. A violin attributed to Riccardo Antionazzi, Milan, circa 1887. 5 to 8,000 the estimate. No bids. Nice, nice scroll there. Interesting back. German violin by Willy Berndt, Berlin, 1926. Quite an unfortunate name, some may say. An English violin by Wilfred Saunders, Nottingham, 1965. 2,500 to 3,500 the estimate. Starting bids of 2,000. No bids so far. French violin by Louis Courtier, Mirco, 1928. 2 to 4,000 the estimate there, with the Rampel certificate. An English violin by William Glenister, London, 1915. 2 to 4,000 there the estimate. Nice looking back there. French violin, probably by Charles Bouthold, Paris, circa 1880. 12 to 1,500 the estimate. No bids so far. An English violin by Richard Duke, London, circa 1780. 5 to 7,000 the estimate. Nice back on that. Length back 353. No bids. An English violin by George Wilmer Hudson, London, 1936. Estimate 7 to 10,000. Current bid 6,000. Violin has been in the same family since 1936. having been bought directly from George Wilmer Hudson by the owner's grandfather. Interesting. Length about 357. I recently saw a Wilmer Hudson violin. I think it was in an Amati sale in person. I have to say, I was impressed. It is a very, very nice instrument, very well made, and the detailing very, very nice indeed. So this one doesn't quite have the same visual impact as the other one that I looked at, but still looks very nice. An English violin by Bernard Simon Fent II, London circa 1840, 4 to 6,000 the estimate. Starting bid's 3.5. Soundpost cracking table with patch. It's had a lot of interesting varnish work. Nice back on this. It's a nice instrument. It's obviously had a bit of trouble, but that seems like a very kind of good price potentially, even though it does have a bit of damage and some interesting varnish things going on, but potentially could be very nice indeed. I quite like the look actually. It's got a kind of rustic feel to it. French violin by Leon Poisson, Miracle 1907, 1800 to 2200 is the estimate. Sold with the receipt of David Vernon, Manchester. German violin by Louis Dolling, Marknikirk in 1938. 1800 to 2500 is the estimate. Interesting violin, second half of the 18th century, 8 to 10 is the estimate. Later scroll, no bids on that so far. A rare Spanish violin by Manuel Cincordi, Valencia, 1722. Estimates 7 to 10,000 there. Starting bids of 6,000. That's very interesting to see. A really early Spanish violin. Soundpost patch and table, ribs, back and peg box damage. Very interesting looking violin. This is something that if I had the money, I think I'd be interested in. It's a nice instrument, 357. It's not too bad. So yeah, an interesting looking violin that. A good French violin, middle of the 19th century, 4 to 6,000 is the estimate. No bids so far. Quite a nice back on that. A German violin by Johann Rieger, Mittenvald, circa 1770, 2 to 3,000 the estimate. One bid of 1,000. Has a certificate actually of Hills and Sons. That's quite interesting. What do they say? We certify that the violin is in the possession of Mr. A. Arnold of Gerrard Street, was made by Johann Rieger of Mittenwald and dates from about 1770. Interesting. Yep, nice looking violin for sure. Definitely an interesting one. An Austrian violin by Matthias, Vienna, 1793, 2 to 3,000 the estimate, 1,800 the bid. An American violin by Horatio Pinheiro, New York, 1985, after the Lord Wilton Guarneri del Gesù, 10 to 15,000 the estimate, 9,000 starting, no bid so far. It's a nice looking violin, that very, very kind of nice and striking varnish that I personally quite like. Maybe it's an acquired taste, but yeah, very nice looking instrument there. A very interesting Italian violin, estimates 8 to 12,000, starting bids of 7, no bids so far. The Italian table, circa 1770, the early Italian back, ribs and scroll, unlabelled, sold with a certificate of Albert Arnold Limited, stating the violin to be by Joseph Dall'Aglio in all its parts, length back 353. Dendro report says 1751 and 1766, Guarneri del Gesù, etc., etc., all of those kind of fun names that you want to see, so that's kind of interesting. Quite a nice looking back there, interesting varnish, quite a funky looking scroll as well, and there's the certificate as well, so quite an interesting looking one for sure, and 353 length of back is quite good as well. And a French violin, School of Derezi, Miracle, circa 1880, 2 to 4 is the estimate, and no bids. And an Italian violin by Marino Capiccioni, Rimini 1929, estimates 8 to 20,000, 2 bids there for 18,000. Wow, okay, that's interesting. Sold with the certificate of the maker and the certificate of Carlson and Newman. There we go. Length of the back 358. Definitely an interesting looking violin there. Interesting kind of quite deep edge work there. And there's the certificates, so that's a popular one. An Italian violin by Gianluca Poli, Bologna, 2015. Estimate 7 to 10. Starting bids of 6. No bids so far. So it's quite curious. Let's see. Good German violin, attributed to and probably by Ignatius Burr from Bernau, circa 1790. 6 to 10 the estimate. No bids so far. Length of the back 358. A violin attributed to Carlo Carletti, Pieve de Cento, circa 1900. 5 to 8 is the estimate. No bids so far. It's insurance appraisal there. An Italian violin by Luigi Orsilio, Milan, circa 1950. 4 to 6 is the estimate. No bids on it so far. An English violin by Nigel Harris and Wells, 1985. 2 to 4,000 there is the estimate. No bids on it so far. Sold with certificate of the maker. A violin, 7 to 1,000 is 700 to 1,000 is the estimate. Starting bids of 600 and no bids so far. A violin attributed to Paul Knorr, Mark Nickerkin, 1934. 1200 to 1800 is the estimate and no bids. A violin attributed to Honoré Derezi, circa 1890. 2 to 3,000 the estimate. No bids so far. French violin, probably Miracle, circa 1900. 1 to 2,000 the estimate. No bids. French violin, probably Lebert Workshop, Miracle, circa 1900. 1,000 to 1,500 the estimate. No bids so far. French violin, probably Carlson School, circa 1900. Length of back 366, which is super long. There were some discussions about this violin on some forums saying that how do you know if this is French or actually German, because a lot of these things are very similar, and I think the general argument was that you need to see the inside working really, and it's very hard to really know without looking at the inside work, and so there's a lot of people that think this is probably just a German violin. I have no idea, but that's been the commentary. A good violin, possibly French, second half of the 19th century. 8 to 1200 is the estimate. No bids on that so far. Length of back 862. So looks fairly interesting. An interesting French violin, probably Miracle, circa 1900. 1000 to 1500 there is the estimate. 900 is the starting bid. An English violin by Jacob Fent, London, circa 1830. Estimates 4 to 6,000. Starting bid 3.5. Looks like a lot of these late entries perhaps to the catalogue, because the photography looks a bit different to some of the rest of it. It's not quite as good or front on, it's a bit twisted, but wow, amazing back there. Looks like it's had some worm damage and things, but interesting looking violin there for sure. It's a bow here, an English silver mounted violin by W.E. Hills and Sons, 2 to 3,000 is the estimate. Oh, and that's it, that's the last one. So I think there are a few extra ones at the end, which I think I didn't see the first time I had a look at this catalogue. But yeah, so that's it, that's the whole catalogue done. Some interesting things. I really like the kind of early 18th century Spanish violin. That's an interesting one for sure. But yeah, a good kind of catalogue. Nothing too outrageous. This is just the summer sale, but definitely some interesting stuff. So I'll put a link in the description as always. Check it out and see what you think. And until next time, take it easy and have fun. See you later. Bye. Many thanks for tuning in to the Musical Instrument Investigator. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please like, subscribe and turn on notifications, and watch out for the next video coming soon.